Hi, my name is Jonathan Jordan. I'm with the Georgia Baptist Mission Board, and I work in groups and faith development. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about small groups. I've got some tips I want to give you regarding small group coaching, multiplication, and kind of how to keep things moving. Now, this is one of the most difficult things in small groups. As like in Sunday school, to find teachers, to find qualified teachers, and to keep them trained and those things is difficult. In small groups, I would almost say it's just as, if not more difficult. Why? Proximity. When I was a minister of education for years and years, I could walk down the hall. I could see those teachers. I could stick my head in the door. I made it a point to visit each classroom kind of on a rotating basis throughout the year. I would just attend Sunday school, just like a member. Some teachers liked that, some didn't. That was okay, but I was able to spend some time with them. I was able to talk to them, and I may send them a note later on during the week, an email, or I may see them out and say, hey, I enjoyed your class. Have you considered, or maybe a quick tip or something I noticed? Some received it well, some not so well. But over time, I developed a relationship with those leaders to help them understand that I was there for them. I was someone who the church put in place to assist them to kind of continually move them forward in their teaching, in some of their biblical knowledge, and kind of the vision for the church as I kind of brought everything together through the different age groups. But those teachers and those leaders were essential. Just in small group ministry, just the same, those small group leaders, facilitators, whatever you want to call them, there's 1,000 names, those are essential to the small group ministry. Now, one of the things that is most essential is to kind of keep everyone in the same lane. In a Sunday school environment, everyone's in that building and they're kind of all together and you're able to see them every Sunday. In a small group environment, they could be in a coffee shop. They could be in people's homes. They could be in restaurants. They could be, I don't know where they could be, but typically they're not all right there underneath you 52 Sundays a year. They may stop, depending on your structure, and we've talked about different ways of small group ministry, whether it be a semester system or all-year system or summers off or whatever. But in the Sunday school system, it's pretty straightforward. But in the small group system, we want to make sure, well, let me give you the first of a couple things. There's got to be some kind of annual training. There's some kind of annual, y'all come in, typically it's going to be in late July, August. If you're going to wait till school starts, you kind of get a little bit better chance of getting everybody in town. But there's got to be some sort of annual training that helps them to know we want all Sunday school, small group leaders, facilitators, those leaders to come together. And we want to talk to you. You may have other leaders from the church. You may have the pastor. You have a small group director. You may have, I don't know what, but you want to make sure you have some kind of annual training, and you want to give them some kind of some nuggets of how they can do a better job. Read some blogs, watch videos. You can do whatever you want, but you want to have some sort of training that helps them. You may make some changes in your own system. Hopefully you do. Please don't do the same system over and over and over and find yourself 6 or 7 years into being in an environment, leading a small group, and you're doing the same thing and you've changed nothing. Now, I'm not saying change everything, although you might decide to, but you've got to keep things moving. You got to keep things current. People get bored quickly, and you want to make sure. So that annual training is kind of, hey, this is what our emphasis is this year. This is what we're going to try to do this year. I've noticed as I've been to some small groups, we want to try to do better at this. Whatever those X factors are, you want to make sure you address that in an annual training of some sort. Also, in your small group structure, you want to have some kind of coach. If I'm the small group, if your church is large enough to have a full-time vocational small group leader, you want to have some coaches. I'll tell you, if you're a lay leader and you're leading that small group effort, when you get beyond about 8, 9, 10 small groups, you want to bring someone alongside of you, or maybe someone with you to help coach those groups. Because just like you're asking those leaders to talk to those and build relationships with those small group attenders, if you can have a coach or you're the leader, you need to be meeting with those small group leaders. It's that simple. Time after time, I talk to small group leaders who never meet with their facilitators. They don't have any kind of ongoing ministry for their facilitators, their small group leaders. That's got to kind of be a weekly event. That small group leader needs to be in touch with someone that's either the director or the coach or someone kind of a little ahead of them, to call on them, check on them, have coffee with them, see how their small group's going. You may have small group leaders, they're on the front lines. They may have gotten into a situation during small group that week they didn't know how to handle. It might have hit a subject matter that they weren't super comfortable with. It might have come on a theological issue that they weren't too sure about, and they told that person, hopefully, that they would get back with them the next week, and they fully intend to, and they need someone to talk to. So you've got those frontline folks, those facilitators, those small group leaders, and then I would say, just my suggestion, if you look it up, you'll find if they're a layperson, 3 or 4 small groups is about all they're going to be able to do if they're working a full-time job. Now, there are other places where you can employ part-time people if your church has that opportunity, that you can do, maybe up to 10 small groups you could lead. That would be a maximum. If you're leading a small group, let's say you have 50 groups, well, I would say you probably need 5 people underneath you, 5 to 6, maybe 7, that can kind of break down that to make sure that all those small group leaders are having someone call them or meet with them. I would say either call or email every week. I would say meet with them at least once a month, face to face, not FaceTime, but face to face, like in real life person, at least once a month, just to make sure everything's okay. I've seen too many churches. They'll have 35 groups flat, and they'll have one person that's supposed to keep up with 35 groups. It's a difficult task. So I would encourage that person to enlist some coaches underneath them to try to help with some of that communication. Not to alleviate the responsibility of that small group point person, but for that small group point person to have some coaches that they can contact every week. See, it kind of goes up, that we can say, all right, coaches, how are we doing? How are things going? What's going on in the groups? And there may be something where a coach says, listen, pastor, you need to talk to this small group leader. They got into something big this week and they need help. It's that conduit of communication. One of the worst things in churches is the fact that, I won't say all the time, sometimes we're terrible communicators. We don't want to say that we need help or we came into something that was difficult. But those coaches are the conduit between that church leadership and that group that says, hey, we've got something we need to address here. Too many things have happened in churches, in groups, and they've gained speed to really disrupt the fellowship of the church because they weren't addressed quickly. And that's a mistake. Bad things always get worse unless they're addressed. So make sure you address those issues. The other question I get all the time, I get it in the Sunday school world and the small group world, both equally difficult, but incredibly important for our discussion today in the small group world. How do I get leaders? Looking for leaders. There is something that, if I could be super plain, you look for leaders all the time. There's not a look for leader week. There's not an emphasis in a scramble time in June and July. You're looking for leaders year-round, 24/7, 365. But it's not only you. It's also your group leaders. Those facilitators that are already leading groups, they're looking for leaders. They're looking for someone in their group that's answering questions. They're looking for someone that they've kind of maybe see something in. We see God moving in their life that may be calling them to leadership. Now, they may not, but we want to make sure because, leaders, they want to lead. They don't want to just sit back and relax. And so I believe it was Maxwell. We'll give him credit. But it was either leaders either lead or leave. And so if you're a church and you're a small group system and you don't allow them to lead, not immediately sometimes, but over time, they'll find somewhere else to lead. They'll go to another ministry that better gives them opportunity to lead. So you're looking for leaders all the time. You're looking for leaders at church on Sunday. You're looking for leaders at church, other church events, children's events, or whatever you've got. You're looking for leaders throughout your membership. You also have your facilitators looking for leaders. Those facilitators, I would say every 6 to 8 weeks, at least every semester, a fall semester, spring semester, summer semester. Let's just say 3. You could do 4 quarters if you want to. But they're constantly giving who from your group could be a leader, who from your group could facilitate a group, who can you raise up as leader. And those group leaders need to understand part of their job is not only to facilitate that group, but is to multiply themselves. That's part of their charge. So many times the group leader's like, well, I just lead the group. No, you're also there to multiply leaders. So we've got to make sure that our facilitators, our group leaders, our small group leaders understand part of their responsibility is to raise up leaders. It's too important and too great of a job to leave to one person. It's not the way to do it. It is. There's problems all over. Problems abound having one person do that. First of all, that one person, only attracts a certain kind of person. Birds of a feather flock together. So we want to make sure that we've got our group leaders also for looking for people like them who are also leaders and raising them up and being prepared to lead a group. And many group systems say, listen, you're in this group right now, but you need to know in 18 months, we're going to break this group up and we're looking for a leader. Boom. Go ahead and set that expectation from the outset. Go ahead and set that expectation from the word go that says we expect leaders to come somewhere. Now, is everyone a leader? No. But we do expect leaders to come out of that group to kind of come up and answer questions and be involved and form relationships with other leaders, and then we can train them. You're going to have an annual training. I talked about coaches a little bit, looking for leaders. You've got to be in touch with your folks when you're looking for leaders. Let me give you one caution on looking for leaders. And I had a church do this, and it was pretty smart. Invariably, leaders get burnt out. It just happens. There are some churches that set, and this is tough. Some of you are going to have heartburn about this one. If a leader comes in, they have kind of a stipulation of how long that leader is allowed to lead a group. For example, a leader may come in and let's say they're in a fall semester, a spring semester, and a summer semester system. Let's just say to make it easy. They may tell a leader, you can only teach 3 or 4 semesters in a row or 2 semesters in a row before you have to take a summer off. And then you can come back and lead a group. Now, why in the world would they do that? That's crazy. We've got people that would teach, 25 years if we let them. Well, if you've taught a long time for a long stint, and if you've done the same thing, you understand you get tired. You get dry. And so what some churches are doing, they're saying, listen, after you've taught 3 semesters, we want you to take a semester off. Then we would gladly invite you back. It does 2 things. First of all, it allows that leader to replenish and refresh. It allows that leader to replenish and refresh their heart, refresh what God's saying to them. It allows them to be a part of a group somewhere where they can understand that they need to be kind of fed a little bit. The other thing it allows to do, it guards the staff or the church leadership from being so dependent on that leader and running them in the ground. Many times as staff people, we get leaders, and man, they're small group leaders, they're in the choir, they're doing this, they're keeping kids. I mean, they've got 14 jobs. But it makes sure that the church leadership is constant. It kind of pushes church leadership to constantly look for leaders. That's the key. And the other thing is vision casting. You have got to find a time, whether it be your pastor or your small group point person, to cast a vision. What do we want small groups to do? How much does it mean to this church? And what are the impacts of having small groups in a church? If you want to start in reverse, what's our desired outcome? This is the outcome we want for our church. This is what we want our small groups to do. This is the impact. Now, how do we want to do this? This is why we do what we do. It's got to be that 50,000 foot or that 5-year vision that we want all those small group leaders, as well as group members, to know. We want everyone to know what our groups are doing and why we have them. So there's got to be that vision cast time as well, somehow in the church. It could be in a meeting. It could be in a service. It could be in a series. I'd love to see a sermon series. That would be optimum. But there's got to be some sort of vision casting. Just a few things to help you today on coaching and multiplication. That annual training, some sort of coaching depending on the number of groups, how to look for leaders, and vision casting. Hopefully that helps as you look for leaders. But thanks so much for watching. If I can help in any way, please contact me at the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. And thanks so much for being a part.